Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me today on our wellness webinar. Today, we are going to be talking about healthy eating. We're going to look at nutrition facts, micro and macro daily values, and we're going to read a label together and just look at what we want to avoid, maybe potentially, and what we want to see more of on our nutrition labels. If you have any questions at any time, please, raise your hand. There's a button at the bottom. You can come off mute as well. And just want this to be interactive. So we're going to touch on some of the basics here, starting off with tips to get started. So when we're taking our time to develop a healthy eating habit, we want to choose nutrient-dense foods. What does that mean? A nutrient-dense food is a food that has more calories and we eat less of it. So we don't need to eat as much food. We don't have to take in more calories because the food that we have is full of the nutrients that we already need. Some of those nutrient-dense foods look like whole grains, fruits and veggies, leafy green vegetables, fish with omega-3 fatty acids, olive oil, and water, which isn't quite nutrient dense, but I put it on there because that's important for us to get started with our heart healthy diet. So if you can see on my screen, I mentioned what we are looking to get out of our diet. That's under that green check there. And if you might notice, the green or the red X next to it has some foods that we might want to avoid. That looks like trans fats. I got a thumbs up there, right? Got some trans fats that we're avoiding, saturated fats, added sugars. Notice the word added. You will see that. High sodium and highly processed foods. Now I want to pause there on highly processed foods because there are different kinds of processed foods, some not as highly processed as others. So things like our regular everyday foods are processed, and to a degree, that's okay. But we want them to retain as much of their wholeness originally as possible. So that's where the term highly processed comes in. Because when we get to there's actually 4 stages, the 4th stage of processed foods, it has very little to no of its whole original ingredients, and a lot of things are additives. So highly processed is very different than minimally processed. And we can really tell what's highly processed by those things that we mentioned a moment ago: trans fats, saturated fats, added sugars, and high sodium. You might see these kinds of things in baked goods like cakes, cookies, things you might buy at the store, things with shortening in it, or kind of microwavable items like popcorn, frozen pizzas, other kind of things like dairy, non-fat, or not non-fat, but non-dairy creamers and coffee creamers are highly processed. We also have things that are fried are going to be processed. Fried chickens, that's a thumbs down. And other things like that. Peanut butter. If you're getting a natural peanut butter, it's going to look very different than your Skippy's peanut butter. So those are just a few of the items that we might see on the highly processed list. High in trans fats, high in saturated fats. But when it comes to total fat, which we'll talk about a little bit more later, fat in general is okay. It's the trans and the saturated that we're trying to stay away from. The unsaturated fats, polysaturated, monosaturated, those are better for us, and our body needs them. Any questions here on tips to get started? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to our next slide here, which is about reading the label. So here we're reading the label. What we've got is, actually, I'm not sure what we're reading the label on now that I'm checking, but we have 8 servings of whatever this might be. Maybe we'll make it up and have fun with it. And 1/8 of this recipe is 360 calories. So you might notice when you grab your food off the shelf, this is on the back of it. And this is on pretty much all of your boxes and things like that. So what we're going to do here is start to break this down. We have colored zones. We have a 1 and a 2. Let's look at those first. So on our 1 and our 2 on our reading the label slide, we're going to start by checking out the total calories. We want to check out the total calories in whatever we're eating, and then look at how much per serving that we're having. So 360 is not the total calories that I'm having. It's only an eighth. So 8 times 360 is going to be my total calories. So let's pretend this is a box of peanut butter Ritz cookies, crackers. And if I ate that whole box, right, I'm having 8 servings, and that's not 360 calories. I have to multiply 8 by the 360 to get that total. Now, when we're looking at our servings, it suggests 1/8 serving will match up with our 2,000 calorie daily value. 2,000 calories, it's what's recommended to us. And based on what our weight loss goal is, we can change that number slightly. We'll talk about this more a little bit later. So we're checking out the serving size. We're checking out the calories per serving, and we have 360. Then we're going to look into what it breaks down into. So that 360 calories is composed of fats, proteins, all the things that you see there. And we're looking at 3 now. So in that section, that light purple section of 3, it starts out, it says total fat. Again, we talked about fat. Not all fats are bad fats. If we remember, there were 2 kinds that I said a moment ago, which was trans fat and saturated fat. So we're looking for unsaturated fats. And what we have here is we don't actually have any listed. We have saturated and trans fat listed. Luckily, our trans fats are 0 grams, and we have a little bit of saturated fat in our total fat concentration. Actually, that's a lot of saturated fat. If you take a closer look, 40% of all the fat is saturated fat. And as you look more closely at your food labels, you'll realize this might be on the higher side of saturated fat, and I might want to put it back. So over time, when you look at different labels, you'll see things that you might want to keep on your shelf and things you might not want to anymore. And that's because we're looking at not only what the calories are, but are they nutrient dense? That's how we eat heart healthy. So go down to section 4 now, and we see the dietary fibers, proteins, and other additional items like vitamins, calcium, iron. These are our micronutrients. So we have macronutrients, protein, carbs, and fats, and then our micronutrients, which is going to be all of our vitamins and minerals and smaller kinds of nutrients. And if you see there, we have listed fiber as well, which is very important for the body. It's also important for lowering cholesterol and helping us feel full. So that full feeling comes from dietary fiber. Let's see, what does our mystery food have here? Does it have any good fiber? I see 1 gram. So I would say that 1 gram is better than none. But down in our next slide, we're going to see what the daily value recommendation actually is. But before we move on to there, the final thing that we're going to do is check the ingredient list. So I've got my nutrition facts. I'm looking at my package. I can see that 1 serving is 360 calories. I can see that I'm getting fat, protein, and carbs. Now I'm also getting some micronutrients. And all of this is based on a 2,000 calorie daily value, which is what number 5 is saying there. But one more thing, it's actually not listed on here, is we want to see our ingredient list. Why is that important? I'll tell you why. The ingredient lists are listed by quality. So it's from the highest quality ingredients to the lowest. So when you're looking at your ingredient list, the products that are first, if they're whole ingredients, that's more likely that it is not highly processed. We talked about that a moment ago. And I wrote down here at the bottom, be skeptical of foods with long lists of ingredients, especially ones that sound not like whole ingredients that you hear every day. So that might sound like sodium bicarbonate or other random things that you might find. Sodium bicarbonate is something in Dr. Pepper. So to keep going here to our next label, if we have any questions, please let me know. Raise a hand, jump in here. All right, so let's keep going. We talked about reading the label, but I don't know how many calories I should get. So that's great that I ate 360 calories from that, but how many am I really supposed to have? So now we're here. We're talking about getting what you need, the proper daily values and counting your calories. So you can count your calories all you want. I can eat 10 Snicker bars and have however many calories that equals. And I can have the same amount of calories in whole grains, fruits, vegetables. Which one's going to be healthier for me? I have the same amount of calories in both Snickers and Whole Foods. Clearly, the Whole Foods is going to be more nutrient dense than my Snicker bar. We see on the Snicker bar added fats, trans fats, saturated fats, maybe even some sodium in there. Versus our Whole Foods are not going to have those things. They're not going to have the trans fats. They're not going to be processed, so they won't have a saturated oil involved in the process of making it. So moving on to what is our daily value that we're looking to hit? So I know, where my ballpark. What's recommended is 2,000 calories. You'll see that on a lot of our nutrition labels, that 2,000 calories is what they're basing their labels off of and their percentages. If you check the nutrition facts. Depending on your weight loss goals or weight gaining goals, your calories might look more like 1,800 to 2,500 calories. If you're hitting that higher side, it might be because you want to gain muscle mass or just weight in general, increase your body fat percentage. And if you're looking to decrease your weight, you can look towards having a little bit of a lower calorie count than 2,000. Side note, 3,500 calories is 1 pound of fat. Keep that in mind because down the road, when we're talking about our daily values, we can look at how you can lose a pound potentially just off of calorie counting, eating nutritious, nutrient dense foods. So, coming back to my daily values, if I'm hitting my daily values around 2,000, these percentages below it are the macronutrient ranges that you are trying to hit based on your 2,000 calories. So if I'm hitting 2,000 calories, 45 to 65% of them are carbs. So that's that whole grains, the fruits, the veggies that we talked about. 20 to 35% from fats, oils, fish, avocado, healthy, good fats for you. 10 to 35% from protein. That could look like beans, legumes, nuts. If you eat meat, then that's various types of meat as well. And we can look at these just as ranges to make sure that our body is getting the energy sources that it needs. We use carbs predominantly as our energy source, which is why we need the most of them. We use protein to build muscle. So if you're building muscle, you're on a higher calorie count, then you're going to want a higher percentage of your macronutrients to go to protein. So remember these numbers, remember this, but guess what? I don't have to write down all this math every day. This is difficult. I'm giving you all this math to do. Can't we do this an easier way? Yes, we can. Keeping count. We can stay accountable to our health with apps a macronutrients calculators that are on our phones. We can use anything that works best for you to keep track. So let's talk about the macro calculator first. And just to recap, we looked at the nutrition facts. We know what is in the food that we're eating. We know what the calorie worth is. Now we know that we're shooting for a range in our calorie count and the proteins, carbs, and fats that goes into that. Now we're calculating what that is going to be. So I'm going to hit this link here. Let's see if it works for me. All right, so it's up. This is our macro calculator. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit calculate. Boom. Everything we need. Proteins, carbs, fats, even the sugars, even the saturated fats, and energy from food total. So what it's recommending me to have, because I want to gain muscle mass, is 2,500 and almost 50 calories a day. So I'm on that higher side. And that looks like 155 grams of protein. Let's check our nutrition label really quick. What did we have for our protein? If you remember, the protein was 30 grams. So whatever that mystery food was, it had a decent bit of protein, but I still need 150 grams of protein for the rest of the day. So you check out your carbs, your fats, and all this is what your goals are going to be to hit. You can change this around. This is awesome. We've got low fat options, low carb options, high protein. It's all about your body, balancing what your body needs, what's working best for you, and then tailoring it even more. So if you're kind of like me, you like balance, you like everything being nice and balanced, this is where you'd be at. If you want to hit a lower fat or lower carb, or even a higher protein to build more muscle, those are options for you too. So we got our calculations. Look, it even has the ranges for us. We don't have to do anything, right? It just tells us everything we need. And I will be able to share this link with everybody as well if you're interested. So we got our ranges. Here's what the high range looks like, right? Now let's jump out of this. Let's check out one more link that we had here on our PowerPoint. So our other link was the daily values. Those are what we're looking to hit every day, and that includes micronutrients. And it disappeared. Okay, so what we're looking for is the daily values of our vitamins and minerals. So I'm just jumping to the first link here from National Institute of Health that takes us down to the DV tables. That's what we're checking out right now. So I'm going to share with you this DV table. And we'll look through. So what we're looking at is the requirements for our nutrients, micronutrients. This is our vitamins, our calcium, our iron. This is what's recommended for us. Where are we? Right here. So we're in this column, right in the second column here, looking through. Okay, but now, again, I'm giving you a bunch of math, right? This is just something to be aware of. You do not have to make sure you're hitting these numbers every single day because we have apps and things that can help us track these things and make it easier for us. So if you remembered from earlier, I mentioned that we can use apps to track our data, our health data. One app that is very widely used, and I use even myself, is MyFitnessPal. It's an amazing app. I recommend it to all my clients, even my clients that are vegetarian and have very different choice and types of food can find their types of food that they make at home. You can make meals and enter it into this app, And all of this is for free. So if you have a delicious recipe that's heart healthy, full of whole grains and vitamins and minerals, your fruits and your veggies, you can put all of that into your app and it will tell you per serving how many calories you are consuming based off that meal. And then that whole app will track your calories in general, your macros, and it can track your micros. So if you want to kind of put it into one easy place, check out some of these apps that they have and get your calories counted today and make your weight loss goals happen. So if there's any other questions for me, please let me know. Come off mute, raise your hands. We're doing our key takeaways here and our questions for our closing.
Hi, Maddie.
Hi.
I'm just going to give back. I really appreciate the nutrition label because I've typically paid attention to lines 1 and 2, but definitely not 3, sometimes 4, and not 5. So I appreciate that. I'm going to look more carefully.
I love that feedback. Thank you for sharing. I feel like, yeah, same thing, right? We might look at just line 1 or 2 at the calories that we're having, if we look at that, and then maybe just push it to the side and eat a couple bowls, and then not realize that we've exceeded a serving size and that we're really consuming maybe 2 or 3 serving sizes of something. I think that is a real trick with some people, is really getting the portion control down. Yes, thumbs up. So if there's any other questions, feel free to message me at madeline@totalmotiontraining.com. You can also check out my website, totalmotion.com, and we will stay connected. We'll see you next month, hopefully, in our next wellness webinar. I love the thumbs up reactions. It's awesome. And I really appreciate you for coming. So I hope you got something out of this, even if it was the basics. All right, we're going to end our recording here. So take care, everybody.